Hey, what's up? I'm Mike Ciprari from SJC Custom Drums, and you're watching the National Drum League.
Well, Mike, thank you very much for joining us today. And take us back when you got it started. Obviously, you guys have talked about the beginnings of SJC for many years now, and people are very fascinated by the story, and of course, kind of the ups and downs of the drum industry and custom industry, and of course, music industry too, as we're currently going through. But take us back to those kind of initial emotions when you started going like, "Oh my gosh, this is real. This can be legit."
That's cool. That's a good question, man. And thank you for having me. I'm very excited. Seeing you guys at NAMM every year. I'm really stoked to finally be on here and chatting with you. What a cool way to kick it off. Lots of emotions, man. In drummers listening and watching this can totally attest to it. Like, drums are such a creative instrument, and we're so lucky to be able to take drummers' visions and turn them into, real life things that they're going to go play music with. And we get that. We're all drummers, especially at the beginning. Like, my brother and I were just obsessed with drumming and like going to shows and hanging out and talking about drums. So it was just pure excitement, man. Like, the very beginning was and I still feel that way to this day, honestly, more now than ever, 20 years later. But like, it's just, we have such a love of the instrument, and the fact that we get to create every day is the coolest thing. And it's been so excitement and passion. Those are the two words I would use to describe it from day one and up until now.
Yeah. So obviously your roster has just blown up. It's huge. You got so many different bands. Have you gotten numb to the fact that you have these guys like Trey Cool, who now it's become commonplace? But have you ever like realized, like, you actually pinch yourself, like, wait a minute, I am talking to X, Y, or Z, and 25 years ago, or even 15 years ago, little Mike would have just probably died right at that moment.
Dude, little Mike is still here, man. Like, all the time I have to. And I'm human. I have my days where I'm stressed out, whether it's something at home or whatever it may be. I'm stressed out at work, and I'm just like, oh man, there's just so much to do, and whatever. But when it comes down to it, and I see Trey or Jay Weinberg or whoever calling me or like texting me and needing something, I'm like, they need me for drums. Like, they need something from me. And that's so cool, and I'm so grateful. But like, dude, that's Trey Cool, man. Like, or Jay Weinberg, all these dudes that we build drums for. It's really cool. Yeah, I remember very vividly seeing Trey Cool play at the Hartford Xfinity Center, and I was like 16 or 17 years old, just like daydreaming, like every drummer or every fan, being like, I want to meet that dude someday. And yeah, like, some of the stories I could talk about that I've experienced with Trey and like his wife and my wife, like, we've done such cool stuff, and I'm so lucky to be able to know him in that regard. And like, so with so many of our drummers, but what gets me excited too is like, even the drummers that haven't, quote unquote, made it yet, that they're not Trey Cool status yet. Even when I get emails and texts and calls from them, I'm just like, someone wants drums from us. Like, I'm so lucky that someone cares enough about what we do to want something from us or need something from us. No matter who you are in the drum world, I'm just so ecstatic to be able to do that.
Yeah, and of course, that things like drums, music in general, the taste can just shift like that. And all of a sudden you go from having way too many orders to be able to fill to, wait a minute, we're going to need to start downsizing or whatever because it's just not coming in.
Yeah, business, man, ups and downs of business, as every business on the planet, goes through. But yeah, it's so all the excitement that I'm talking about and all the passion that goes into it. Yeah, equally, there's that other flip side of like, yo, like, we're running a business here, and we need to be sustainable so that we can keep the lights on. And you don't know what the trends are going to be, and no one knew, and we're definitely not the only one. Obviously, the music industry was hit pretty hard, but something like COVID happens, and then industries get flipped upside down. That's the hard part of it, man. You know, running a business that you're super passionate about is very hard. It's I don't know anything else. This is all I've done since I was like, you know, a teenager. But it's pretty hard.
Hmm. What things have you done to improve business, your understanding of business, business sense?
Cool. Yeah, dude, that's an awesome question. Thanks for asking that. I believe in continuous improvement and trying to grow every day, always be changing, and advancing and adapting. And so, no, I don't find any of these, I haven't found any of these in particular the most successful. I think everything has culminated to this point, and I'm continuing to learn. But yeah, I went back to Southern New Hampshire University. I started taking some online classes, like leadership and psychology classes to help me be a better leader and manager for myself, internally for, you know, the people that I work with. I read a lot of books. I've read a ton of books. You know, I read a lot of fiction books to get my mind off of business because I'm OCD and anxious, and this is my baby, so I think about it every second. So I read some fictions books, but a lot of business books that I've read, my favorites are Good to Great by Jim Collins, Traction by Gino Wickman. That's got to be my favorite. Traction is incredible. Anybody that's looking to advance and grow and work in a team, Traction has just so many super easy tools in it to help you track and have a dashboard and have a vision plan. It's good for individuals and for businesses. I talk to a lot of people. I have a bunch of mentors in the business world. And you know, I'm so lucky to have guys like Steve Van Dorn from Vans I hit him up and we'll chit chat. Like you know, he's a hero of mine. He's like Willy Wonka to me. I learn a lot from him and the team, over there, but even like just talking to friends or my dad or you know, my parents about, hey, I'm going through this, or my wife, just talking and communicating, whether it's venting or not, like you always can think of something in a different light. And I like to always walk in somebody else's shoes before I react. A long time ago, when my wife got pregnant, not a long time ago, a few years ago, a buddy told me when my son is growing up, respond, don't react. You know, you don't want to react to your kid if they're doing something. You just want to respond calmly to not give them that. So, you know, that can be for a child or any interaction you're having. And it's a continual process, man. I'm into stoicism and meditating. So I'm always every day reading empowering messages about gratitude and things like that. And I think that helps. I'm still, again, I'm OCD and I'm anxious, but I'm a lot less wound up than I was at the beginning of the company because I have a lot of those tools that I've learned from, you know, books or those mentors that I mentioned.
I'm sure the respond versus the react is a great way to deal with probably both customers and also your employees too. Is you know, the customer come through and go, I want to do this, this, and this, and this, and you're like, okay, well, here's what it's going to be. I'm like, what? No, I mean, I can get a kid over at Guitar Center for like $350. So what do you want to charge me $5,000 for? And you're like, well,
anybody, most everybody would want to respond to that and say, well, go do it then. If you want to get $300, stop wasting my time. But you know, we want to be their friend. And for me, what always takes me home and back to like, you know, ground zero earth, I just put myself in 12-year-old Mike's shoes. Like that question you asked little Mike, what would he think? Everything that we do in the company. And if there's ever an issue, if whatever it is, I'm like, what would 12-year-old Mike think? What would 12-year-old Mike want to hear? And I've trained myself to not send emails immediately. You know, Abe Lincoln used to write, if he was mad at someone, he'd write them a letter and never send it, kind of thing. So those kind of things that get my heart pumping a little bit quicker, I'll write it and then I'll keep it in the drafts for a couple hours and then send it later.
Right. Yeah. I think Facebook should definitely have a 5-hour delay, you know, where you
totally, man. I don't know if that would help everybody out there, but I'm sure it would help a handful. That would be helpful for sure.
Yeah, the number of jobs that have been lost by someone hitting send versus a 5-hour. Are you sure you want to send this?
Exactly. Yes.
Could be some trigger words or something like that.
Totally, dude. That's a good idea, man. Pitch that to Tom who's Mark? It's Mark Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah, Mark, right? Yeah, Tom was everyone's friend, and Mark is everyone's fact checker, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, pitch that idea to him, man. That's a good one.
What are you rocking? What is your kit?
Oh man, I've had the same kit for a while. I have an idea. I'm a pretty simple dude. Like I love making the flashy kits and I love that people think them up. I've always been pretty simple. Like my first kit was a black sparkle with red hardware. Then I got like a matte avocado green with flat black hardware.
Okay.
And then after that, I got this, I had asked our acrylic supplier if they could make like a grape color acrylic shell, like lavender, real light purple. And they did, and they came out really blotchy. Like the color was just not, it wasn't good. So instead of scrapping the shells, I just sanded them and made them look all like distressed and stuff. And I've had that kit for like 8 or 9 years now. Just a 12, 16, 22, like a matte lavender acrylic with chrome hardware, and I put silver glitter inlays in the hoops.
Okay.
Pretty simple. I don't get an opportunity to play acoustic kits very much. I've got that kit here at my house with mesh heads on it. But I've been rocking that for almost a decade.
Nice. So, but is it generally just 12, 16, 22?
Yeah. I was always a one up, one down. Like, I had the 2 rack toms when I was a kid when I was learning, but like everybody in the like mid to late 90s, early 2000s, I liked the Travis Barker setup. So I kept that. And I was never a drummer for me. Anytime I would play or tour, I was always just like, I'll set my kit up real quick, play the show, throw in the cases. I was always so focused on SJC and like how I could make the business successful. I never really put much into my personal drumming.
Sure.
I've honestly just got recently back into it. I have a 3.5-year-old and he loves the drums. So I made him a kit and we jam, and he got me actually playing drums again after a few years off.
So what are his sizes?
So my wife found this Ninja Turtles kit on the side of the road. Actually, she was driving home one day and she was like, there's this sick kit wrapped in Ninja Turtles. It was like, one of those cheapo little kits. And it was like a 4x10 rack tom, a 10x12 floor tom, and like a 12x14 kick drum. So I converted the kick drum into a floor tom, and I made the other two rack toms. And we actually had this 18-inch floor tom that we had from Trey Cool's kit. It cracked when we shipped it to him, and somehow we got it back. Like they shipped it back to us or something. And I had this shell just sitting around, so I put some spurs on it and threw that on there for him. So he's got a dope little kit, and I got this Belgian silent cymbals. He's got a 14-inch crash and a 20-inch ride and just the typical 13 or 14-inch hi-hats.
That's
Dude,
great.
He crushes that thing, man. It sounds really good. And I gave him we make these little side snares that we call cans, and one of them is wrapped in grip tape. So I grabbed one of those for him, and he loves it, dude. He crushes that thing.
Nice. That's great.
Makes me proud.
So who are some of your drumming influences?
Oh man, I don't get to talk about that much. My favorite drummer is David Sandstrom from the band Refused. Not a lot of people know David, and Refused, like they're a popular band for sure. They had a really popular music video on MTV. Like when I was like 12 years old, I saw it. And they have a record called The Shape of Punk to Come. And I just think his drumming on that record's so cool. They got back together a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. They headlined Coachella, and the drummer emailed me, and we made him a kit. Nice. And to watch him play and like see how he sets up his kit, he plays with a coated ambassador on the top. A one-ply head on the top is not very common, and he keeps it super loose, so it's just like really dead sounding and just like sounds just fat, and it sounds so cool coming through the the sound system at a show. But David Sandstrom's my favorite, and Chad Sexton from 311. He's why I started playing drums a few years before I saw I heard Refuse. So Chad, David, I love Jimmy Chamberlain from Smashing Pumpkins. As a kid, he was a favorite of mine. Brandon Steinekert from Rancid. He was in a band called The Used when I was a kid. I totally looked up to him and his drumming, still do. Those are my favorites for sure.
Okay, nice. Well, I was a drum builder in the 90s. I started working for OCDP back in 97 and worked there till 99. And the first day I went there, so I just volunteered my time. Like they're like, we don't really have any extra money. So I'm like, well, can I just come in and kind of learn the craft? I said, okay, sure, you can do that. So I did that 2 days a week for about 6 weeks before they actually hired me. And the very first day, they said, you're going to sand Chad Sexton's yellow kit, which was this massive, he had 4 octobons
Yeah.
and, you know, like 10, maybe even 8, but at least 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, and a 20-inch gong tom. And
Sick.
of course, snare drum and bass drum. And they said, well, the reason we want you to sand it is because our sanders won't fit inside these octobons. So here's a bunch of sandpaper.
Go
And,
for it, man.
and so it was 100, 220,
Yeah.
400, and then
Yeah. Yeah.
600. And they're like, I don't know, I can't see my reflection on the inside of this drum yet, so you better get back and do it again. I'm like,
I
oh
love
my
it, dude.
gosh.
Oh, that's so cool, man. Like,
Yeah.
I was just talking about that. They OC always had the most smooth finishes on the inside of their shells, man. It was always like glass. That's really cool you did that. Like we've got a couple people that we've hired that were just like, hey, can I come hang out? And after like a month, we were like, we actually really need this person. Let's get them on the payroll. That's really cool. That I don't know if the yellow kit was before or after the orange kit. Chad had a bright orange kit as well. I don't know if it was before or after that yellow.
I think it was directly after it. The one that he had before the yellow kit was the black matte with the diamonds all throughout it. So when the lights would hit it, and then the yellow kit came out right after they finished recording Transistor.
Cool.
They put that album out, and then he had that one. And what I remember the time was he'd always had like a big kit, but never like a monster one, you know, never with all the octobons, whatever else. So they said, okay, what do you want this time? And he's like, all right, here's the ultimate plan. So, but yeah, that was stained yellow, and then they high glossed it as well too. So
that's sick, man. I love you. Chad's the man. He's such a cool guy.
Yeah. And obviously their shows are so awesome, and they play everything that they've ever written. You know, every single show. Not like some of the bands are like, we're just playing our new album. We'll leave the stuff from the '90s. Yeah. No, they just play through their whole catalog.
Dude, and every song they play, I'm just like, oh my God, this is the best song ever. Right. And the next time I'm like, this is the best song ever.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, it's amazing. So I was just listening to their album Music and then Grassroots the other day, and I was like, man, I remember all of these words. It's like it just like comes out. Like if someone were to say, hey, sing like a 311 song, you're like, I know, I remember the chorus to like Amber is the color, but and then all of a sudden you hear like some drum beat, you're like, all right, you just start rapping like Nick Hexum's like lyrics, you know.
Dude, that's so funny. There's not many people that feel that. I have so many friends that are like, you like 311? I'm like, they're my favorite band ever. They're like, come on. So I understand what you're saying, and it's cool to talk to somebody that gets that.
Can you tell me about your tour with Vans?
Yeah. We teamed up with Vans probably like 4 or 5 years ago. Steve Van again, is basically a hero of mine. What he's done with his business and in our culture is really cool. So I hit him up to grab coffee. He was in Boston. So we met up, and we started doing these clinics. We were doing a drum workshop over in China with Frank Zumo from Sum 41. And we did it with our Asian distributor. And we went over there, and it was just so cool and so inspiring and motivating to see these kids like love the fact that we were doing a drum clinic and like letting them meet Frank. And we had a bunch of goodies that Van sent out just to like give kids stickers and hats and whatnot. And so we came back and we pitched it to them like, hey, could this be something that you guys would present and back? We would like to do it in the United States. And they jumped right on. They were like, yeah, let's do it. Like they sponsored it. And so we go around. We've been really lucky. We've done most of the country a couple times now. We've done China. We went to Japan last year with Jay from Slipknot. And we just put on a really cool clinic. It's not your typical, drummer goes up there and shows you how to do a rudiment or how to warm up. You know, there's a lot of really great videos online about that, you know, with that stuff. And there's a lot of great drummers that do clinics that touch on that stuff. We try to really just kind of break down the walls and let kids be a part of it. So yeah, we go to School of Rocks. I'm friends with the people that run School of Rock. And so we get tied in with their kids and we put on shows for them. We'll do them at music venues. And we just have kids come out. The shows are free. There's a ton of goodies. There's a bunch of Vans stuff for free, shoes. You can enter to win a SJC Vans custom snare drum. We give stuff away at every show. I put in the trailer a couple kits and a couple snares for kids that that we see have it. You know, there's a couple kids at every show that I just watch, and I'm like, this little drummer, you know, dude or a girl, like, is going to totally grow up and they want it so bad. It's like the little Mike. I can see the spark in their eye that they want to do this. They want to be up there one day giving a drum clinic. And so we'll just like surprise them and give them a snare drum, like this $1,000 snare drum. We're just like, here you go. And it's so cool, because like, it's like they're going to remember that moment forever. I've had so many moments like that in my life where somebody really hooked me up. So to be able to pay it forward, so to speak, in conjunction with a company like Vans is really cool for me. And it's been a very exciting and empowering and creative outlet for me to get some stuff, you know, done in the music drum community that I wouldn't always be able to do with SJC, because we're such a small company. And so Vans backing it has been such a blessing. And we've done so much stuff. Like we were going to be out all this year. Obviously no one's doing anything this year.
I know.
It's just giving me a lot of time to kind of brainstorm and scheme on how we can make, you know, 2021 or beyond even cooler. And we've got a lot of ideas. So more to come from that side of the business for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely one of the goals of National Drum League as well, too, is to kind of identify people, individuals who could really use, you know, our model was to kind of get refurbished drums people would have that they're maybe not using anymore, or maybe some lugs broke on it, whatever. But, you know, we all would have loved to have had a drum set, even with the lugs didn't match completely, you know, even if different colors or whatever, but to have something that's like, you know, yours and it's your kit. And just find avenues to really help people out, especially the youth, with drums, or even schools too, because obviously those programs have been cut so dramatically.
That's a really cool thing, and I'd love to connect with you on that too, to see if there's anything we can do to help get involved in that, because I feel very strongly about that sort of stuff. I mean, I was in marching band and jazz band throughout high school, and if I didn't have that, who knows where I would have ended up in my music career. And, you know, already before the pandemic, music programs are actively being cut over the last decade or so. And obviously now it's like kids aren't even really going to school full time. They're going, a couple days a week. Like there's going to be no music program. So to try and revitalize that and be a small part of some sort of revitalization, I share in that goal for sure. And I'd love to team up and see what we can do together.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. So tell me about coming up with the shield, the SJC logo, which of course you've adopted into, which is a great campaign. I love it. Where you got the lugs, you got the shield on the drums, you got bass drum claws, which are matching that as well too. Talk about that whole process.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. I'm glad you like it. As the OCD, anxious micromanager that I am, I'm always worried and wondering if people like the stuff that we do. And doing that was particularly hard, because we went from, for many years, we had the oval logo, and then we had a version of the shield logo. And then we had what we called our Victorian logo, which had like flowers, like a floral kind of thing. So we were using 3 logos over, you know, the span of like 10 or so years. And so we decided as we were growing, like, let's kind of like focus the brand in and have one logo. So my buddy Lou Stuber, he's a graphic designer out of Pennsylvania, great dude. And he reached out to me. He did some work for us, and I mentioned to him that we're going to try to, you know, rejuvenate our logo. And he was up for the challenge. And we went back and forth for like a year. He would send me stuff all the time, just like decks of logo options, and they were all really cool, but I was like, no. And then one day he sent me what's our logo now, and it was like a Sunday morning, and I was like, that's it.
Birds chirping.
Dude, yeah, exactly. I was like, this is it. Like, you know, when you just see it, you're like, this is it. And he had sent me some really cool ones, and I was sending him like Armor and like NHL logos and things to like try to get some inspiration. You don't know what it is until you see it. And he landed on that. And so we were like, all right, that's our logo. And then we got the opportunity, you know, we had saved up for a bit to get molds made for our own lug, you know, because we wanted to be able to identify our drums out there. So we were like, hey, we had an intern. There was this dude, Brian, that was interning from a local college, and he sat there with clay for like 3 months and like made clay versions of what he thought our logo should be, or our lug should be. And we kept pushing him in different directions. And then one day someone was just like, hey, you know, try to mimic it off of our logo. That would be cool.
Yeah.
And he did, and he made it all 3D, and then we got it 3D printed and then some samples. And we were like, yeah, that looks cool. And like, I think people will like it. And it identifies our drums, you know, more so than just using a tube lug or something like that. Tube lugs are really cool. Definitely miss using them on a lot of stuff. But yeah, it was a really fun process, and something that I never really thought I would have the opportunity to do, to design my own lug, you know, that we'd get mass produced. I think that was it was a fun process for sure.
So then what was there a specific drum that you remember putting those on for the very first time? Like
the very first one we made, it was just like this black gloss drum. We wanted to test them. We were like, all right, we need to really make sure that they stand the test of time. And, you know, such as life, it was a learning and growing process. The original lug, turns out, didn't stand up to drummers cranking it and hitting it on tour. So we were always sending out replacements, and we had to, we beefed it up, you know, we reinforced the whole inside. But the first drum we made was just this black gloss lacquer snare drum. It was like a 7x14 maple. And we threw them on that. And our buddy, I think Matt Richter has it. We have a really great friend and loyal customer of ours down in Connecticut. He's got a music school called Soundwave. I think he has it. I'm pretty sure we either gave it to him or sold it to him for a couple $100 so he could test it out.
Right.
So yeah, that was the drum. And I'm a pack rat, so I keep a lot of stuff. I have the original clay, you know, renderings of the logo. They're sitting on my shelf right now.
Nice. Well, cool. So can you tell us about you can laugh about it now type of situation where looking back, you go, I wish we would not have done that. But at the time, it seemed like kind of keep on, you know, have an idea or some type of project. And you're like, just keep on fighting through it. And you finally got there, you're like, we should have just, you know, hung up the phone or whatever, just canceled it immediately.
Man, that's a good one. I don't have anything that comes off the top of my head right now, because I don't remember a lot of that stuff, because I view that sort of thing as a stepping stone, and you can learn from it.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
And what I really mean by that is that sort of stuff happens every day with me, basically, where I'm like, I'll work on a project, or I'll have this idea, and I'll obsess over it, and I envision it in my head. And I've gotten pretty good at running it by a sounding board. Like Zach, our brand manager, I bug him every day, all day, on GChat, on Instagram DM. I text him. I'm like, hey, what about this? What about this? I'll kind of throw my ideas to him as a sounding board, and he'll tell me, like, flat out, like, that one's not a good one. Don't focus on that. Or, you know, that one's cool. Think about that. But we've done some crazy stuff, man. Like, you know, non-drum building, you know, we used to drive from Massachusetts to California for the NAMM show. I don't regret it at all. I think we did it 3 or 4 times, but now that I know that, like, we should just hop on a plane and ship our stuff over there, and it's a lot more relaxing. But we did it, and it was a really cool experience. I probably only would have done that once. But drums, like, we've always been able to, we always, and my brother was always really good at this, like, thinking it through before you make it. So we didn't make any costly mistakes building the drums or making something that wouldn't work. He was always really good at that. Like, when we designed the Butcher hoop the first time, I just kind of like threw him the idea, and he went and made it, this crazy wood hoop that covers the lugs, and it adds like a crazy dimension. And it could have easily ended up looking like this weird, you know, psychedelic mushroom drum kind of thing, but he made it look really, really classy. And yeah, nothing comes to mind that we went too far on a drum where I was just like, I should have not done this. But that's also because we have really good builders and craftsmen that build that stuff, and not me, because I'm the like, just do it, you know, figure it out later, where like you got to be like, measure 2 or 10 times and cut once. But me, I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna do it, and then it doesn't work. So
then you're throwing that shell away and getting another one, and then throwing that one away. So
Actually, here's one for you. And this was probably like 2005, like right at the beginning of the company. We were making drums for a local drummer, and my brother was like, hey, go round over those bass hoops. And I had never rounded over bass hoops before, but in my head I was like, I'm just gonna try it. Like, this looks like the router table setup he used. So I did it. You know, a kick drum hoop's like 1 3/4 wide, you know, around there. By the time I was done with it, like halfway, I had it down to like 1/2 inch. And in my head, I'm like, you should probably stop, man. You're cutting a lot of wood. But I kept going, and I got it down to like a quarter of an inch. Like I was about to cut my fingers off. My brother was like, he was like, how did you even do that? Like the router table is set up so you shouldn't even be able to do that.
Right. There would be enough of a flatness where you go both sides, right? And
but somehow I took an inch or so off of the kick tube. So that was a silly one, but luckily it was just a bass drum hoop.
One time we had a customer who was about to come in. This is probably 98 or so, so decades ago. I have no idea who the customer was, but he was getting like, I think it was a 7.5 inch deep 14-inch snare drum. And it's like, he's going to be here in like a half hour. So we're like, just hurrying to finish this thing up, right? And then I cut the snare beds, and I take it to the bench, and I'm about to file it down. I look, and I'm like, wait a minute. I cut one of the snare beds on the wrong set of lugs.
Oh, no.
So then quickly go back, and then one of the guys like, hey, why are you going back in there? I'm like, I'll tell you later, sand it down a little bit, It wasn't too bad, and it wasn't really affecting the depth of it, but just to sit down and go, wait a minute, we have to resolder a snare wire to do more of an angle than straight across.
Oh, dude, that's another invention of yours. That's cool.
Exactly. You never know what's going to be the thing that brings you to it.
Exactly. Yeah, that sort of stuff happens, especially when you're doing when you're under pressure like that, and it's hard not to be when you're passionate about what you're doing. You're like, you want it to be perfect, and you got a lot of stuff to do. Fortunately, if you're lucky, you got a lot of drums to build. That stuff happens, and I don't even want to think about the amount of times that sort of stuff happened and no one told me. Just like, don't tell Mike.
Right. Oh yeah.
We always ship out the right stuff, and our team is really awesome. So I'm sure it happens. We're all human. The amount of times I've entered the wrong number in a spreadsheet or whatever,
Sure. Yes. So piggybacking on that, what is a time where there was maybe a mistake or a different in understanding that all of a sudden it turned into something that was pretty impressive, or at least led the way to it?
Whoa, yeah, that's a good one. That doesn't happen super frequently, and I can't even think of anything off the top of my head like a happy accident. We do like it happens with finishes every now and then with us, like because we do such custom stuff. If a customer wants something really, really custom, we'll do it. And if they don't like it, we'll send them a photo. So we've got, we'll do it on like a snare drum or a scrap shell. That happens every now and then. But yeah, I'm a big proponent and a lot in our team, not so much like the saying that I'm going to say, but my English teacher taught me prior planning prevents poor performance.
Sure.
So the 4 or 5 P's, whatever that is. And our team, again, measure twice, cut once kind of thing. We haven't had many of those. NAMM. Okay, here's one then. Yes, NAMM 2010, I think it was. We built an acrylic snare drum, and I saw this acrylic tube at this weird hardware store that I was at, and so I bought this it's probably like 2 inches. You know, being at Orange County, the big 2-inch vents, especially in the late 2000s, early 2000s, it was super popular. So I found this piece of like extruded acrylic. It was a tube, a hollow tube. It was like 1 inch thick, 2 inches wide. I'm like, how do we cut holes in this acrylic shell, like an acrylic snare drum shell, and shove this tube in? And so we did, and it looked really cool, but the ends of the acrylic were cracking because of the glue that we used. So that the ends were like, the glue was getting into the acrylic, because acrylic has pores. It looks solid, but it's got pores that it can kind of spider crack. And it's like, this is one of the times that we're going to drive to NAMM. We're going to get in the van the next morning at like 9 a.m. and hit the road. And I'm freaking out over this cracked, I'm like, we can't bring that to NAMM. And this is such a cool idea. We got to bring this thing to NAMM. How do we fix that? How do we hide it? Do we mask it and paint it? So we're all at the shop at like midnight, running around, just completely exhausted. Everything's done. The van is packed. It's just this one drum. And one of the guys found this 4-inch, or not 4-inch, the holes, the bass drum holes. They make 4 and 6 inch, but they used to make 2 inch. Those 2 inch. They still,
not holes, but another company does the same thing.
Yeah, and like not a lot of people get those 2 inchers anymore, but they used to be cool. Like again, Orange County doing a lot of the cool patterns on the front.
Up on the top and kind of.
Yeah, like you make a cool little pattern. Someone walked by. We didn't even use those, and someone walked by and they're like, "Yo, that'll work." And we figured out a way to take that 2 inch kick drum hole, get it on the shell and screw it in. And it was like, it fit perfect. It gave it like a finished look, you know, like it looked like we did it on purpose.
Right.
And we finished that drum at like 1:30 a.m., went home, slept, and hit the road. And we ended up building about a dozen of those snare drums for dealers. Couple dealers in Japan got them. And that was one of my favorite drums we built, like really cool, versatile, just rad looking snare. And it was like a, whoa, that almost didn't make it.